welcome back. Today I just want to jump on a few different sports topics here that have been floating around over the last couple days to a week or so. So the first one that sort of caught my attention was the other night after the Celtics blew their 3-1 lead in the playoffs. Let me get you to the desktop here. Celtics blew a 3-1 lead in their first round of the playoffs. They were playing the 76ers 7-game series. Obviously, took a 3-1 lead. It looked like they were sort of good to go. They were going to coast to the second round. Philadelphia comes back, ends up beating them in Game 7 to knock them out of the playoffs, sort of unexpectedly and in a huge upset. And so, after the game, Jaylen Brown decided to jump on his Twitch stream and do this. Okay, here's what he said. And this video is from Chaz NBA on YouTube.
Jaylen Brown went live on his Twitch a day after the Celtics lost Game 7, blowing a 3-1 lead versus 76ers, and backed up what he said in his post-game interview, calling out Joel Embiid even more for flopping, as well as going in on some refs, saying that they had an agenda against him and that they need to be investigated.
But that's how you know motherfuckers be watching my stream. That's how you know Joel Embiid was sitting there at home, motherfucking eating chocolate chip cookies, watching my motherfucking stream, and he's like, you know what? When I come back, I'm gonna show these, and we lost. So credit to the 76ers, credit to Joel Embiid. I still think he flopped entirely way too much. So maybe because I spoke and I was critical of the refs in the regular season. So you know how they responded. Like we gonna call you're gonna lead the playoffs in offensive fouls. If I had to like say there's some referees that need to be investigated, like just overall out of all the officiating, we had 3 of them in the last 3 games. We had, at top of my list. Honestly, this was the most fun season I've ever had in basketball. Personally, like the uncertainty of going into the season, the uncertainty of going into every game, having a fight for every win, did something emotionally, I feel like, for all of us. Like we became more together. We had to fight.
Okay, so as you can see, he had a few opinions to express here. Namely that, he felt Joel Embiid was flopping. He felt the refs had a clear agenda, and then this bit at the end that he threw in was definitely highlighted on a lot of sort of reaction content, which was that this was the most fun season he's ever had, and that's obviously notable because for most of the season, Jason Tatum, the other star of the team, was out with an injury, obviously enabling Jaylen Brown to sort of take over and be the number 1 option on the team, which he's claiming contributed to, or at least it seems that would contribute to this being his favorite season he's ever played in. So a lot of people sort of interpreted that as a slight at Jason Tatum. The general reaction was sort of all somewhat the same, and it's all just like destroying Jaylen Brown for jumping on his live stream, as you just saw after the game, and giving his opinions. And so a lot of it sort of sounds like what you're going to hear from Stephen A. Smith here.
What Jaylen Brown had to say yesterday.
Big time issue. Big time issue. I understand where Jaylen Brown is coming from, but here's why it's just an awful, awful look for him. Bruh, you getting paid over $300 million. $300 million. You were an MVP candidate. You were up 3-1 in this series. Did you say anything when you were up 3-1? Did you say anything then? No, you didn't. And the fact of the matter is Joel Embiid missed the first 3 games of this series, came back in Game 4, dropped 26, and the Sixers still got blown out. You said nothing.
But then I felt like the other notable reaction was...
How do you feel about the blowback Jaylen Brown's been getting?
He deserves it. You want to be a number 1 in the NBA? This is what it is. And you want to go online and criticize the officiating after your team blows a 3-1 series lead? This is what you get. So to me, all part and parcel to the role. That's it. Now, look, some of this he brought on himself because in his defense, I'm not sure Jason Tatum would get the same kind of blowback following a Game 7 loss, although Tatum wouldn't go on Twitch and say what Brown said.
Why do you think it's worse for Brown?
Because I think people don't like him. I really do. I think the people around the league don't like him. They wait for an opportunity to jump on him. He pumps his own tires a lot. He goes on social media, calls out Twitter. He ripped LeBron's kid, all that stuff that LeBron clearly hasn't forgotten. So I just think there's.
Okay, so my point is sort of that it just sort of surprises me, and I'm always sort of astounded when things it almost feels like the sports media all has the same opinion on something, as if they all got together one night and decided we're just gonna universally destroy this guy for doing this. And what I don't understand about it is and look, I mean, just look, it's the next day everyone was just having a field day with it on every show. NBC Sports Boston, Pat McAfee, ESPN. I mean, look, they're saying they're floating a trade. Oh, trade this guy. He made some comments on his Twitch stream. And what I just don't get is what is the big deal here about him popping onto his stream after a game? Why do all the sports media still cling to this sort of archaic notion of if you just lost, you need to just shut up and sit down and fall back. Or that doing anything sort of remotely, I guess what they would view as selfish, is just the ultimate offense when you're a member of a team, especially if you just lost. But it's if you listen to his comments, yeah, he sounded you could argue he sounded a bit like a sore loser, but at the same time, it's not like he was being flagrantly inappropriate, or that his opinions were wildly inaccurate, and he was trying to give some examples of the in-game things that were supporting his opinion. So it's I just don't get do you want this guy to go to the post-game press conference only and just give the most sterilized team first, just completely fake commentary that's meant for corporate sports media consumption, that doesn't reflect his views, just because that's the team thing to do, I guess? To me, what's going on here is, and you'll notice this when athletes do this, and indeed the sports media, despite Draymond Green's sort of post-game press conference that he would do on his own podcast being really popular, the sports media always sort of mocked it and treated it dismissively. And you'll notice they're sort of doing the same thing here with Jaylen Brown. And I feel sometimes a part of the reason is they're whether they're doing this, they realize they're doing it, or subconsciously, is that they feel somewhat threatened by the idea that an athlete can just jump onto his own platform and give his opinion and connect with his audience directly without having to go through them, right? Without the audience having to come to them for sort of some filtered view on everything, right? So and the other thing too is, if Jaylen Brown did give that sterilized press conference that I just described, you wouldn't have anything amazing. You wouldn't have all this content to talk about the next day. Him doing this, going on his stream, becomes, half your content for the next day. If every single athlete did this and went on their own stream after every game and gave you, or just all the big stars or whatever, and gave you the rundown of their thoughts and what they were pissed off about and the refs they thought they were on the take, think about all the content that generates from you. You guys can react to all of it. Instead, you're basically saying, go away, dude. Stop giving us this content to react to. What are you doing? What are you doing giving, real opinions? And what are you doing speaking your truth about the game that you played in? That's insane, man. Just give us the bullshit fraudulent crap that most athletes give at the press conference every time. That's what we want. This doesn't make any sense. So the backlash against all this backlash, you can't tell me that Jaylen Brown isn't going to sit there and think, at least for a minute, even if he does continue to go on his stream and give his opinions, he's not going to sit back, at least for a second, and feel some kind of tinge of do I even really want to keep doing this, going on my stream, and people are just going to get so pissed off every time just from giving my honest opinion. And okay, so he enjoyed playing the season this year the most because he didn't have to share the ball as much. Okay, that doesn't sound great. I get, if you're Jason Tatum, it probably hurts for a second to hear that. But then if you're Jason Tatum, he's the one that can relate to Jaylen Brown the most. He's an NBA player like Jaylen Brown, a high-level NBA player. I feel like Jason Tatum can understand and may at times even feel the same, that when he's out on the floor and he's got control of the ball and control of the game and Jaylen Brown's maybe on the bench, that's the most fun that he has. He's not saying, I hate Jason Tatum, I wish he was gone. He's just saying, when I was in control and I had sort of control of the team and I was the number one option, that was the most fun I had. I feel like Jason Tatum would be like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, I can totally identify that. I can relate with that. It's the sports media that makes it into this, like, inter-team rivalry that doesn't even exist, because it gives them fodder to, like, just talk about, oh, he's got to be traded. You don't get along with Jason Tatum. Got to be. It's like, that was never even expressed. Anyways, let's jump on to this next story I wanted to talk about. Okay, so what happened with Brendan Sorsby? Brendan Sorsby may still be the quarterback at the Texas Tech University for the football team. Obviously, Texas Tech was in the playoff this past year. They're a powerhouse. They notably have a huge NIL budget afforded to them by this gentleman named, I think it's Cody Campbell, who's some billionaire that supports the team, right? And Sorsby was not on Texas Tech last year, but he was the hottest commodity in the transfer portal when the season ended this year in college football. Texas Tech was able to land him with a reported $5 million deal, so basically paying him $5 million to play quarterback for them this coming season. Unfortunately, what happened was, over the last couple of weeks, I think it was maybe about a week or two now ago, Brendan Sorsby was found by the NCAA to have been engaging in illegal gambling activity. And I'm just going to bring up Claude here. This is Claude AI that I'm getting this information from. And let me just sort of read the background here. Sorsby is alleged to have placed thousands of online bets during his college career, including wagers on Indiana football games while he was a member of the team during the 2022 season. Critically, ESPN reported that in 2022, when Sorsby played for Indiana, he bet on his team to win. Though ESPN notes he didn't play in those games, a distinction that might help him marginally. Okay, so, again, he was involved in some illegal gambling activity, and now is being sort of dealt with by the NCAA, where we don't exactly know what their punishment is going to be. It's just been announced that he's been sort of found to have been doing this. He has lawyered up. I believe he grabbed a lawyer that was involved in previous sort of anti-NCAA legislation. Yes, Kessler. I believe it's Jeffrey Kessler. I feel like the general conversation around this story with Brendan Sorsby is that people basically believe he's not going to, like, this is going to preclude him from playing in any games this season. He's going to essentially be banned for the season for having engaged in this betting activity. This is where the situation gets grim for Sorsby. The 2023 NCAA rule updates created a tiered penalty structure, and Sorsby appears to fall into the harshest tier. Betting on your own team school, tier 1. Student athletes who wager on their own games or on other sports at their own schools face potential permanent loss of collegiate eligibility in all sports. So people are basically pointing to that NCAA bylaw, and they're basically using that as a way to form the opinion that he is not going to play this season. My opinion is a little different. I think, like sort of like the AI points out here, the situation is grim. I do still think there's a decent chance that he plays at least for a portion of the season. That maybe he gets banned for like half the season and gets to play like the second half or something, right? Or potentially misses only a few games or whatever. And the reason I think this, despite the NCAA bylaws appearing to be sort of pretty clear on this situation, is just simply because this kid is backed by a billionaire, for one, the one that paid him to become the Texas Tech quarterback, right, for this coming season, and, you know, paid a lot of money to do so, which, by the way, I really hope he didn't blow his whole $5 million on his gambling addiction. That would be very sad. But who knows? Especially when he hasn't played any of the games that he's supposed to play to earn it. Ugh, good lord, that's sticky. So, but anyways, I think there is still a chance that he could play this season, that he could sort of weasel his way around this or get a lighter penalty just because he's backed by a billionaire. I mean, the billionaire is going to have the budget necessary to throw at the attorney. So I think he got a pretty well-suited attorney for his case, which obviously is something that, you know, that I'm sure that attorney is costly, right? So that's something that's probably being afforded to him by this donor, Cody Campbell, for Texas Tech, that, you know, backs this program and likely wants Sorsby to be able to play this season, right? So you're backed by a billionaire. That gives you a decent chance at fighting any case, legal or otherwise. And remember, the NCAA has a history of getting sort of ran over in these litigation cases, namely the NIL one, and then a number of these different cases that have happened over the last few years where players have lobbied for added NCAA eligibility so that they can sort of get a larger earning window. And what they've argued is that, like, oh, I played 2 years of junior college, that shouldn't count. Oh, 2 of my years were affected by COVID, that shouldn't count. A lot of these players have ended, like Diego Pavia, and there was a number of others that have ended up playing like 6 years of college football, and because they just steamrolled the NCAA in court cases, and they were able to have like a court basically rule that they were eligible, right? And the NCAA just had to back down. Now, obviously, Sorsby isn't in as quite as strong a position as a player that's trying to fight for a year of eligibility that's using COVID as an excuse, right? But I still think Sorsby will have a chance here to maybe get a little bit of a lighter sentence. And if we look again at this at AI, what it's telling us about the NCAA bylaws, what I just think is hilarious is they all of these tiers leave a little bit of ambiguity that can be weaseled through if, in the case the NCAA wants to let this kid play, right, or give him a lighter sentence. Like, let's go back to these the tiers of the bylaws. Tiers of punishment. Tier 1, betting on your own team school. Student athletes who wager on their own games or on other sports at their schools face potential permanent loss of collegiate eligibility in all sports. So, potential. See that? Student athletes who wager on their own games or on other sports at their own schools face potential permanent loss of collegiate eligibility in all sports. If that potential wasn't there, then I would say that bylaw is very clear. He's going to have permanent loss of eligibility in all sports. But it just said the potential leaves this small crack in the window where the NCAA can make up something different, basically, right? Tier 2, large volume wagering on other sports. For cumulative wagering activities that greatly exceed $800, NCAA reinstatement staff are directed to consider whether additional loss of eligibility, including permanent ineligibility, are appropriate. So, again, for cumulative wagering activities that greatly exceed $800, NCAA reinstatement staff are directed to consider, meaning there's no command being made. There's no direction being guaranteed, right? They're just being told that they are directed to consider, meaning they could decide not to. They could consider it, decide not to, right? And then tier 3, wagering on your sport at another school. If a student athlete wagers on their own sport at another school, education on sports wagering rules and prevention will be required as a condition of reinstatement, and the loss of 50% of one season of the eligibility will be considered. So, this is the other one where I think they could write, like, this language is always included. Education on sports wagering rules and prevention. Like, so this is like the little part where we make, we lighten the sentence, but the press release will read as he's getting education on sports wagering rules and prevention, and that will be required, and he'll be required to write a letter that tells you, what he did wrong and how he knows it was wrong and blah, 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 and that will be required as a condition of reinstatement. And they can sort of just frame this as a young man having gone astray and not needing to sort of suffer this punishment that's going to ruin the rest of his life or greatly affect the rest of his life just because of, a small period of bad behavior. Whether or not that's actually what happened, right? And then the loss of 50% of one season. So there you go. There's the half season thing that I was talking about, where it's just like there's just language in here that allows them to sort of lessen the blow. It's not, none of it is set in stone. None of these rules are hard and fast. They all have a bit of ambiguity. Words like potential, words like directed to consider, that allow you to use discretion, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, so factors that could help him. He didn't play in the games he bet on. The non-participation distinction, while slim, matters at the margins. It weakens the integrity of competition argument slightly, distinguishing him from a pure point shaving scenario. Right? He self-reported and entered treatment. Sorsby has taken a leave of absence for the team to enter a residential treatment program for his gambling addiction. While this doesn't erase the violations, it demonstrates good faith and could factor into reinstatement appeals. Right, so it's a classic, I'm honest, I got honest about it. high-end treatment. I'm working to get better. Why would you want to, go harsh on someone that's trying to change his ways and trying to get better when the point of, any punishment is rehabilitation, right? Procedural delays work in his favor. The investigation would likely need to include an interview with Sorsby, which cannot occur while he's in a rehabilitation center. He's also not obligated to speak if his lawyers feel it would not benefit him. This creates meaningful time pressure on the NCAA side. The season is not infinitely far away, right? So they're just saying, this is just saying they could just delay, get some sort of injunction that says that until this is proven and concluded, he is allowed to play, right? And that is a really effective strategy. It's used all over the legal landscape, right, where we just delay this thing until it's no longer affecting something we really care about, and then you can just hammer us as hard as you want. I'm in the NFL now. What the hell do I give a crap? So, and then, like I said, Jeffrey Kessler, highly paid attorney. This is Sorsby's most powerful asset. Sorsby has hired attorney Jeffrey Kessler to fight for his final season of eligibility in 2026. Kessler led the team that secured victory in the Alston antitrust challenge, resulting in a unanimous Supreme Court decision affirming the trial win, and also led to House versus NCAA litigation that forced a $2.8 billion settlement, allowing revenue sharing directly with athletes. Right, so he's been involved in a lot of these anti-NCAA litigation cases. And then I just mentioned what I mentioned, Texas Tech financial and institutional incentive. They already had a contract with him to pay him big money. The full weight of Texas Tech's financial backing of these billionaires that back the football team is going to be behind this kid. And the last thing that I just wanted to point out, this is Josh Pate's College Football Show on YouTube. Excellent college football show. I would highly recommend it to anyone that likes college football. And he's very plugged in as well, right? Like, he usually when he says things, they're informed in ways that he's not revealing outwardly. But just listen to what he says about this Brendan Sorsby thing. You'll hear that he's leaving the door open for Sorsby to potentially play. And it's just like, there's a reason he's doing that, I would say. He thinks there's still a chance.
I think this is kind of a casual suggestion. Now, I'm going to work off an assumption here. I'm going to assume that Brendan Sorsby is not going to play this year for Texas Tech, but that is not decided. I want to make sure everyone understands. And I'm going to circle back around to this in a few minutes because there have been some developments there. Ross Dellinger, while the rest of you were at the beach or at the lake or, living your lives over the weekend, he was hard at work. And he put this out yesterday, right, Jesse? It's about a day old now. On Twitter, quote, quarterback Brendan Sorsby has retained attorney Jeffrey Kessler in his potential fight to regain eligibility, Kessler tells Yahoo Sports. Sorsby is hoping to reach a compromise with the NCAA. If not, he may pursue the legal path. Any legal challenge is independent of Texas Tech. So this is Brendan Sorsby versus the NCAA, basically. And I don't really know what the case would be here. It seems like it's a pretty dead to rights situation on the fact that this happened, although I myself have not had the evidence put in front of me, but all the reporting on this is that he bet on college football.
Okay, so you can hear, and granted, Pate thinks it's unlikely, but there is still that open window. And as you saw in that tweet he showed from Ross Dellinger, Sorsby's lawyering up, like we said, with Jeffrey Kessler, and they're going to fight. And it's going to be a good litmus test for this moment in time for how strong the NCAA is against some of these blue chip programs, which Texas Tech hasn't always been, but is becoming with their recent increase in financial backing and the rise of the program in general as sort of a power in the Big 12 and obviously a recent college football playoff participant. So it'll be interesting to see, if the NCAA still has the chutzpah to deal with one of these blue chip programs harshly, or if it's just going to get steamrolled in a case where it appears to have all the evidence it needs to sort of take this kid down. These developments will be one to keep an eye on, and who knows, maybe they just delay and try to make it so that they can get some sort of injunction where a judge says he can play until this case is wrapped up. We know right now he is in rehab, and my guess is they'll probably extend that rehab visit as long as it suits them so that he doesn't have to attend the interview with the NCAA regarding the investigation, which would, it just adds to the delay of the investigation. The investigation can't go forth until they interview him, so they keep him in rehab as long as possible just to get closer to that season. Because I believe after this season anyway, he's going to go to the NFL draft. So if there's any way that Texas Tech and sort of his backing, his lawyer, can just get him to the season and get him playing and get this case sort of delayed to the end of the season, that's basically a victory in their eyes. Even if the full punishment is brought upon him after that, really the point is that he just wants to play this season. So like it said in that tweet, he's going to try to reach an agreement. If he can't reach a compromise, then he's going to pursue the legal path, whatever that means, probably just suing them into oblivion. So we'll keep an eye on it. Appreciate anyone listening.